The champagne tower glittered beneath the golden lights of the Park Hyatt ballroom, but all Harper Ellington could hear was the pounding inside her chest. A moment earlier, guests were celebrating, clinking glasses, congratulating the new Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore. Now, the music faded into a distant hum as she watched her husband, her brand new husband, step away with his iPhone pressed tightly to his ear. "Just a minute," Chase whispered, his tone clipped, eyes avoiding hers. He didn't come back. 5 minutes. 20. An hour. The bridal suite felt colder by the second, the silence pressing against Harper's ribs like a weight. She paced the marble floor, still in her wedding gown, her veil trembling with every shaky breath. She tried calling Chase once, twice, 5 times, straight to voicemail. Outside her window, Manhattan sparkled like a promise she'd never been allowed to touch. At 12:14 a.m., a soft knock broke the air. A Park Hyatt employee, nervous and hesitant, stepped inside. "Mrs. Whitmore, I'm so sorry. I didn't know if I should tell you, but I saw your husband. He took the elevator to the penthouse on 57. He wasn't alone." Harper felt the world tilt. The name she feared, Brielle Stanton, slipped from the employee's lips like poison. Her chest tightened. Her fingers went numb. Her wedding night had become a humiliation so cruel, so unspeakably public, it stole the air from her lungs. But Harper didn't scream. She didn't chase him. She didn't beg. Instead, she walked to the silver tray beside the bed, picked up the untouched marriage documents, and with a steady, icy hand, signed the divorce papers before her wedding bouquet had even wilted. She left her Tiffany ring on the table, and as she stepped out into the hallway, dragging her suitcase behind her, a tall man in a charcoal suit paused mid-step. Noah Carver. His eyes widened as he recognized her, and he saw everything she was about to rise from. Harper Ellington had always imagined that her wedding night would end in whispered promises, soft laughter, and the quiet certainty that she'd finally found a place to belong. Instead, she was dragging a half-broken suitcase through the lobby of the Park Hyatt at nearly 2 a.m. Mascara streaked across her cheeks like bruises she hadn't earned. The marble floors glowed beneath the warm lights, but nothing felt warm anymore. Guests from another event whispered when they saw her, still in her gown, veil hanging by a single pin, the Tiffany ring no longer on her hand. Harper could feel their eyes slicing into her, but she kept walking. Pride was the only thing keeping her upright. Noah Carver didn't mean to stare. He'd just stepped off the elevator, having finished a late business dinner. His Montblanc pen was still clipped to his pocket, and his tie hung slightly loose, but his posture straightened the moment he saw Harper. Fragile yet fierce, like a woman refusing to shatter where the world expected her to. Their eyes met. She quickly looked away. He didn't. "Harper!" His voice was low, careful, as if approaching a wounded animal. She froze for half a heartbeat. She remembered him from a conference years ago. The brilliant, impossibly composed CEO who'd once complimented her engineering presentation. She never imagined he'd see her like this. "What happened?" he asked softly. "Nothing," she whispered, forcing a smile that hurt. "I just need to get out of here." Her suitcase wheel snagged on the edge of a rug, nearly tipping over. Noah stepped forward, but Harper pulled back before he could touch it. Or her. "I'm fine," she said, even though she couldn't feel her own fingers. "Where are you going at this hour?" "Anywhere but here." It wasn't anger in Noah's expression. It was something far worse. Concern. Genuine concern. The kind she hadn't seen in years. The kind Chase never offered. "Harper, did he leave you alone on your wedding night?" The question was barely a breath, but it hit her like a blow. Her throat tightened. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Noah exhaled slowly, jaw clenching in a way she didn't understand yet. You don't have to do this alone. Harper shook her head. Yes, I do. And before Noah could say another word, she stepped out into the cold November air, alone, humiliated, but determined to walk away before the hurt swallowed her whole. New York at 2:30 a.m. had a cruel kind of beauty, cold, dazzling, indifferent. As Harper stepped out of the revolving doors of the Park Hyatt, the November wind sliced through the thin fabric of her wedding gown, lifting the veil like a ghost trailing behind her. Yellow cabs hissed through puddles, and neon signs flickered against the wet asphalt, but the city didn't slow down for broken brides. It never had. Her phone buzzed, a text from Chase. We'll talk tomorrow. Go home. Go home. To where? To who? Harper swallowed the bitter taste in her mouth and shoved the phone into her clutch. The wind tugged at her hair, forcing her to wrap her arms around her body just to keep the cold from settling into her bones. She waved for a cab. None stopped. A woman in a soaked wedding dress wasn't the kind of passenger drivers wanted. Too messy, too emotional, too much trouble. Her suitcase caught on a crack in the pavement again. She yanked it free with more force than necessary, anger momentarily warming her palms. For the first time since midnight, something other than heartbreak pulsed through her. She wasn't going to fall apart on a sidewalk, not in this city, not for Chase Whitmore. She started walking toward Fifth Avenue, heels slipping on wet concrete, each step a quiet declaration that she refused to collapse where he abandoned her. She passed a family leaving a late dinner, a teenage couple laughing under an umbrella. A homeless man curled under a Starbucks awning, every life moving forward while hers sat frozen. That was Manhattan. It didn't care if you lived or drowned. Halfway down the block, her vision blurred. She blinked back tears, but the city lights doubled, then smeared into a watercolor haze. The emotional crash hit her harder than the cold. She steadied herself against a brick wall, chest tightening. She wasn't crying for Chase. She was crying for the life she thought she finally escaped. The foster homes, the temporary beds, the birthdays spent alone. She had believed marriage would anchor her at last. Instead, it reminded her she had no one. A soft hum pulled her attention. A sleek black Mercedes rolled to a stop beside her. The window lowered. Noah Carver's voice drifted out, steady and warm in a way the city never was. Harper, get in. Please. And for the first time all night, she hesitated, because his concern felt more dangerous than the cold. On the 57th floor of the Park Hyatt, far above the rain-soaked streets where Harper struggled alone, the penthouse glowed with warm light and whispered luxury. Chase Whitmore stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, his tuxedo jacket tossed carelessly across a velvet chair, the Manhattan skyline reflecting in his untouched whiskey. Behind him, Brielle Stanton slipped out of her coat, the soft rustle of designer fabric slicing through the silence. You didn't have to rush, she said, her voice sweet but sharpened at the edges. She won't leave you. Brides never do, especially the desperate ones. Chase's jaw tightened. You don't know her. Brielle laughed softly. Please. I know women like Harper Ellington better than you think. Girls who grew up with nothing always cling the hardest. Chase didn't answer. He hated how Brielle could read him. He hated more how right she usually was. He took a slow sip of whiskey, trying to steady the unease creeping up his spine. He didn't expect to feel anything on his wedding night, not guilt, not doubt. But the image of Harper's eyes searching his face during the ceremony lingered like an echo he couldn't shake. Relax, Brielle cooed, winding her arms around his waist. After the IPO, you can divorce her cleanly. Public sympathy will be on your side. No one respects a woman who can't control her own husband. Chase pulled away. She's not weak. That's where you're wrong. Brielle poured herself a drink, smirking. She's perfect for your image. Quiet, hard-working, tragically grateful. A woman who won't question where you spend your nights. He didn't correct her. He didn't have the courage to. A notification lit up his phone. Another call from Harper. He declined it. Brielle raised an eyebrow. Want me to block her? No. He said it too quickly. A shadow flickered in Brielle's expression. Jealousy, sharp and sudden. Don't tell me you actually care. I don't, Chase snapped. She'll be there tomorrow. Brielle smiled again, slow and poisonous. And if she isn't? He hesitated. It was the first time all night that fear, not arrogance, crossed his face. Far below, Harper was walking away from him, and Chase had no idea that the choice he made in this penthouse would destroy everything he thought he controlled. By the time Harper reached her apartment in Queens, the rain had soaked through every layer of her wedding gown. The building's flickering hallway light made everything look more exhausted, more forgotten, exactly how she felt. She fumbled with her keys, her fingers trembling from cold and humiliation, and pushed open the door to the tiny one-bedroom she once believed she'd be leaving behind. The silence that greeted her was suffocating. She stepped inside and placed the suitcase by the door, the wheels leaving a faint trail of dirty rainwater on the hardwood floor. Her veil slipped off, landing in a puddle near her shoes. She didn't bother picking it up. The apartment still smelled like the lavender candle she'd burned the night before, when she'd been excited, nervous, sure she was stepping into a new life. Now the scent felt cruel, mocking. Harper walked to the bathroom and caught sight of herself in the mirror. The reflection almost didn't look human. Mascara streaks, hair tangled from the wind, lips trembling. Her wedding dress, once beautiful, now clung to her skin like a soaked reminder of every mistake she'd ever made. She pressed both palms to the sink and whispered to herself, "Don't fall apart. Not yet." But the moment she closed her eyes, memories crashed into her. The vows she meant, the future she imagined, the naive hope that someone might finally choose her. Someone who wouldn't walk away like every foster family before him. A sob slipped out before she could stop it. Then another. She slid down to the cold tile floor, dress pooling around her like a defeated ghost. She cried until her chest ached, until her throat burned, until the tears ran dry. No dramatic screams, no theatrics, just the quiet heartbreak of someone who'd been abandoned one time too many. When her breathing finally steadied, she pushed herself up and walked to her bedroom. She opened the closet, pulled out a sweatshirt and leggings, and slowly peeled herself out of the ruined gown. The zipper snagged twice, as if refusing to let her go. Harper tossed the dress on the bed. It looked dead. She crawled under the blanket, shivering. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message from Chase. "I'll explain tomorrow." She turned the screen face down. Tomorrow didn't exist for them anymore. The morning light didn't feel like morning at all. It felt like judgment. Harper blinked awake to the faint hum of traffic outside her Queens apartment, her body aching as if she'd fought a war instead of a heartbreak. The wedding night still clung to her like a bruise, one she couldn't see but felt every time she breathed. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Chase. "Call me. We need to resolve this." Resolve what? His betrayal? Her humiliation? The fact that she'd signed the divorce papers before their cake had even been sliced? Harper tossed the phone aside, but as she moved, a dull cramp tugged at her stomach, a reminder of something she had tried to forget in the chaos of last night. She wasn't just a bride abandoned. She was a woman carrying a secret that terrified her more than losing Chase ever could. She sat up slowly, pressing a hand to her abdomen. 6 weeks, barely more than a whisper of life. She'd planned to tell Chase after their honeymoon, imagining he'd be happy, imagining they'd celebrate, imagining a future that now felt painfully naive. Her throat tightened. A child deserved stability. A child deserved a father who didn't disappear on wedding nights. She wasn't sure she could be enough alone. The thought nearly broke her. Harper forced herself out of bed and walked to the kitchen. She needed water, clarity, anything. But as she reached for a glass, her hand trembled again. Last night's pain had drained her. But this was a new kind of fear. Her phone rang. Not Chase this time. The clinic. Her doctor's voice was gentle, cautious. "Harper, your test results came back. I know we talked about the faint positives. I can confirm. You are definitely pregnant. I'd like you to come in for an early scan." Harper's knees went weak. Not now. Not today. Not when her life was falling apart thread by thread. "Okay," she managed. I'll come in." When the call ended, she pressed her forehead against the cabinet door, fighting the urge to collapse. She had no family, no partner, no one to lean on, just herself, and a baby who didn't ask to be part of this chaos. Somewhere deep in her chest, a flicker of resolve sparked. She wasn't going to let Chase decide her child's fate, or hers. Not again. Outside, faint footsteps echoed down the hall, followed by a knock on her door. Steady. Familiar. Noah Carver. Here. Again. And for the first time since the wedding night, Harper didn't know whether to feel terrified or relieved. Harper hesitated at the door, her hand hovering over the lock for several seconds before she finally turned it. When she opened the door, Noah Carver stood there, impeccably put together, despite the early hour. His charcoal coat dusted with the light morning drizzle. He looked nothing like the chaos that lived inside her apartment, or inside her. "Harper," he said gently, "I wanted to check on you." She blinked, trying to make sense of why a CEO, a man with skyscrapers to run and entire teams competing for his attention, was standing in front of her tiny Queens apartment like someone who actually cared. "You didn't have to come," she murmured. "I know." Noah's eyes softened. "But I wanted to." She stepped aside reluctantly, letting him in. The apartment looked even smaller with him in it, his presence warm in a way that unsettled her. He glanced at the rumpled wedding dress on the bed, the crumpled tissues near the trash, the untouched glass of water on the counter. He didn't comment. He simply said, "I'm sorry you went through that." The words cracked something in her chest. Harper crossed her arms, gripping her elbows. "It doesn't matter now. I signed the papers. It's over." Noah studied her carefully. "You don't look like someone who believes it's over." She laughed, bitter, humorless. "I don't have the luxury of falling apart." A flicker of confusion crossed his face. "Harper, what's going on?" She stiffened. For a split second, she considered telling him everything. The pregnancy, the fear, the crushing sense of being utterly alone. But vulnerability was a language she hadn't spoken in years. "It's nothing," she lied. But Noah wasn't the type to accept easy answers. He took a slow step closer, lowering his voice. "You don't owe me details, but let me help. Let me at least drive you somewhere safe." Harper shook her head. "I don't need saving." "I didn't say you did," he replied gently. "I'm offering support, not rescue." That distinction almost broke her. She swallowed hard, fighting the sting in her eyes. "Noah, this isn't your problem." He held her gaze steadily. "Maybe not, but you shouldn't have to face it alone." The words hit too deep, too fast. She stepped back, creating distance. "I can't do this. Not now." Noah gave a slow nod, understanding more than she said aloud. He stepped toward the door. But just before leaving, he turned to her one last time. "If you ever need someone in your corner, Harper, I'm already there." When the door closed behind him, the silence felt heavier than before, because for the first time since the wedding night, she wasn't sure she wanted to be alone. By the time Harper gathered the strength to shower and change into clean clothes, the world outside her window had fully awakened. Delivery trucks rumbled down the street. Neighbors clattered down the hallway. Life moved on easily, mockingly, while hers felt trapped under rubble. She made herself a cup of tea she didn't drink, staring blankly at the steam rising and disappearing. Maybe that was what her marriage had been. Warm for a short moment, then gone before she even realized. Her phone buzzed again. Chase Whitmore. FaceTime call. Her stomach twisted. She let it ring until it stopped. A minute later, a text came through. "Harper, this is ridiculous. Open the door. I'm outside." Her breath caught. No, he couldn't be. A hard knock rattled her apartment door. Harper's pulse hammered as she crept toward the peephole. The hallway blurred for a second from her shaking fingers, but when her eyes focused, dread slammed into her ribs. Chase was standing there. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect mask of irritation stretched across his face. Not remorse, not worry, just entitlement. "Harper," he called through the door, his voice low and sharp. "Let me in. We need to talk like adults." Adults? He had abandoned her on their wedding night. Another knock, louder. "Open the door." Harper stepped back, gripping her phone, her breath uneven. She wasn't afraid of him hurting her physically. She was afraid of him manipulating her back into silence. Back into the small, quiet corner of his world, where she had been nothing more than a polished accessory. She didn't answer. "Fine," Chase snapped. "If you don't want to talk here, we'll talk at the office." "And Harper, don't forget you're still legally tied to me. Running away doesn't change that." Her jaw clenched. She had signed the papers. She had walked away. She had ended it. But Chase Whitmore was a man who believed reality only mattered if it served him. Another knock. "I'm not leaving without answers." Footsteps approached from down the hallway. Noah. He slowed when he saw Chase outside Harper's door, his expression hardening, not with jealousy, but with something protective and dangerously calm. Chase turned. "Who the hell are you?" Noah didn't blink. "The man who will call security if you don't leave." Tension thickened instantly, electric and sharp. Harper swallowed hard, because this wasn't the confrontation she wanted, but it was one she could no longer avoid. The tension in the hallway felt thick enough to cut. Chase glared at Noah like he was an obstacle, an inconvenience he wasn't used to facing. Noah didn't flinch. He stood steady, hands relaxed at his sides, but his presence commanded the entire corridor. "Back off," Chase snapped. "This is a private matter." Noah's voice was calm, dangerously so. "Then handle it privately, not by pounding on her door before she's even had time to breathe." Chase stepped forward, squaring his shoulders. "And who are you to her?" Before Noah could answer, Harper cut in, her voice quiet but steady from behind the door. "No one. He's just someone who was being kind." The words stung Noah more than she realized, but he respected it. She wasn't ready for a protector or a witness. She opened the door a crack, just enough to meet Chase's eyes. "What do you want?" Chase exhaled sharply, as if she were the one inconveniencing him. "We need to fix this PR disaster before it gets out of hand." Harper stared. "PR disaster? The staff saw you storm out in your wedding dress. Do you know what it looks like if people start talking? This could tank my IPO timeline." Her stomach turned. "That's what you care about." "You're my wife," Chase insisted. "Our image matters." "I won't be for long," His jaw tightened. We'll discuss that later. Right now, get dressed. Brielle is waiting downstairs. Harper's blood ran cold. Brielle? What game was he playing? Before she could ask, a syrupy voice drifted up the stairwell. Harper? Sweetheart? Can we talk? Harper felt ice in her veins. Brielle Stanton climbed the last steps gracefully, stilettos clicking against the tile. A soft beige trench coat wrapped around her like a shield of false innocence. Her smile was bright, too bright. Noah, she said with a tiny nod. Always a pleasure. He didn't bother responding. Brielle turned to Harper. I'm so sorry about last night. Chase wasn't himself. I shouldn't have called him. I didn't know you were upset. Upset? Harper almost laughed. Brielle stepped closer, lowering her voice. Let me make it up to you. Can we talk? Woman to woman. The hallway felt too small, too suffocating. Harper finally found her voice. You expect me to believe you didn't know? Brielle's smile didn't falter. Believe whatever helps you heal. Noah stepped beside Harper, silent but clearly on her side. Chase rolled his eyes. Can we please be adults? Harper's spine straightened. No, she said. But I can be honest. She met Brielle's eyes coldly. You didn't win anything last night. You just exposed what kind of man he is. And for the first time, Brielle's smile cracked. Just a little. But enough. Harper closed the door behind Chase and Brielle, leaning her forehead against it as their footsteps faded down the stairwell. The hallway fell silent again, but her thoughts roared like a storm she couldn't escape. Noah remained where he was, hands in his coat pockets, gaze steady. He didn't push. He didn't ask. He simply waited, giving her space she didn't know she needed. You don't have to stay, she murmured without turning around. I know, he paused, but I'm not leaving you like this. Something in Harper's chest tightened painfully. She stepped back into the living room, arms wrapped around herself. Noah followed. His presence calm but weighted with something unspoken. He cleared his throat. Harper, last night I recognized you before you recognized me. She glanced up, confused. From that conference years ago? No, he said quietly. From much earlier. Her breath stalled. What are you talking about? Noah exhaled slowly, choosing every word. You mentioned once, in your presentation, that you grew up in foster care, that you didn't know much about your mother. A sharp, familiar ache pulsed beneath Harper's ribs. Her mother was the wound she never touched. She was an engineer, Noah continued, a brilliant one. She worked for my father's company before she disappeared. Harper froze. Disappeared? Noah nodded, expression heavy. I was a kid, but I remember her. My father talked about her all the time, how talented she was, how she deserved the world. And then one day, she was just gone. No explanation. No forwarding address. Nothing. Harper's throat tightened. Her mother had left when she was 7. No notes. No warnings. Just vanished. Your father never looked for her, Harper whispered. He did, Noah said softly. For years. But her trail ended abruptly. My father always believed something happened. Something she didn't choose. Harper felt the room tilt. Why are you telling me this? Because, Noah said, stepping closer. When I saw you last night, your eyes, your voice, everything clicked. You look exactly like her. And I think whatever happened to your mother has something to do with Whitmore Capital. Harper's breath tore in her lungs. No, that couldn't. But the certainty in Noah's voice shook her. Harper, he said gently, you didn't just marry the wrong man. You walked straight into the same shadows that swallowed your mother. Her heart slammed painfully in her chest. This wasn't just betrayal. It was history repeating itself. And she wasn't sure she was strong enough to face it alone. Harper barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, her mother's face, blurred by time and absence, floated behind her eyelids. Noah's revelation gnawed at her like a warning she was too afraid to digest. By morning, she forced herself back into routine. She needed distraction, something practical, something that didn't involve betrayal or long-buried ghosts. So she went to work. Her engineering firm sat inside a glass tower on 3rd Avenue, spotless and cold, much like the people who typically worked there. The receptionist gave her a sympathetic look. Having undoubtedly seen the viral wedding night rumors already circulating online, Harper ignored it. She headed straight to her desk and opened her project folder. She was supposed to revise a structural blueprint for Whitmore Capital's newest luxury high-rise in Midtown, a project she'd been assigned long before she knew Chase Whitmore would become her husband. She stared at the architectural plans spread across her screen. Something was wrong. A load-bearing column was missing from the sublevel design, an omission that could cause a catastrophic collapse under stress. Not immediately, but eventually. Quiet failures happened all the time in the industry. A few years, a decade, then disaster. She zoomed in, tracing the lines. No way this was an accident. Someone had deleted it. Her stomach tightened. She checked the audit trail. The file had been modified 2 weeks ago by someone using Chase's corporate login. Her pulse spiked. Why would Chase tamper with a structural blueprint? Her mind raced with possibilities. Cost-cutting, fraud, insurance manipulation. And with each thought, her chest grew tighter. If she didn't report this, lives could be at risk. If she did, she might get fired. Or worse, pulled deeper into whatever mess had already swallowed her mother. A voice behind her made her jump. Looking at the Midtown file? Harper turned. It was Daniel Reed, a senior engineer, and one of Chase's quiet allies. He leaned on her cubicle wall, smiling too casually. Just follow the approved plans and don't ask questions. It's already been cleared by the Whitmore office. Harper's blood chilled. She forced her voice steady. The design is unsafe. A column is missing. Daniel's eyes sharpened. Then pretend you didn't see it. What? He stepped closer, lowering his voice. People who challenge Whitmore Capital don't stay employed very long. She felt the warning in her bones. She also felt something else. The same fear her mother must have felt before she vanished. Harper swallowed hard, powering down her computer. She couldn't stay here. She needed help. And there was only one person she trusted enough to call. Noah. Harper didn't remember leaving the office. Only the frantic echo of her footsteps down the stairwell. The cold bite of wind hitting her face as she stumbled onto the street. And the desperate tremor in her fingers as she dialed Noah's number. He didn't answer. She tried again. Still nothing. A taxi honked, swerving around her. She barely noticed. Her thoughts were a blur of missing columns, fake approvals, and her mother's disappearance. She needed someone she could trust. For a brief, foolish moment, she imagined Noah would pick up on the third ring. He didn't. Instead, her phone buzzed with a different name. Chase. She almost declined. Almost. But then she remembered the blueprint. The danger. The threat hanging over hundreds of future residents if she stayed silent. She picked up. Harper, Chase said, breathless, as if he'd run. We need to talk. There's a column missing, she cut in your Midtown project. Someone manipulated the plans under your login. Silence, then a slow, cold exhale. Where are you? Outside my office. Stay there. Before she could respond, the call ended. A chill raced down her spine. Minutes later, a black town car screeched to the curb. Chase climbed out, expression carved in stone, eyes scanning for witnesses. "Get in," he ordered. "No," Harper said sharply. "Tell me why your login was used. Tell me why the blueprint is dangerous." "Because you weren't supposed to see that," Chase snapped. "You were supposed to follow the revised version and sign off." "You expect me to approve something unsafe?" "You're my wife," the words burst out, arrogant, entitled, furious. "Not for long," she shot back. His eyes darkened. "You think you can just walk away after everything I've built? Do you know how much damage you caused by running off on our wedding night?" Harper laughed, a broken sound. "I didn't run. You abandoned me for Brielle." Chase's jaw twitched. "This isn't about her. It's exactly about her. And the blueprint. And whatever you're covering up." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand the scale of what you've stepped into." "Then explain it." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "You want the truth?" Chase whispered. "The Midtown Project can't have that column. It blocks the hidden access tunnel." Her breath hitched. "Tunnel for what?" "For things you don't want to be involved in." Everything stilled. The skyline, the traffic, her heartbeat. Chase leaned even closer. "If you speak a word about that file, Harper, you'll disappear faster than your mother did." Her knees nearly buckled. He straightened his coat, face smooth again. "Now get in the car." Harper stepped back. "No." Chase's eyes went ice cold. This wasn't just a bad husband. This was a dangerous man. Harper didn't remember how she got home. Her legs carried her on autopilot, mind numb, throat tight with the echo of Chase's threat. "You'll disappear faster than your mother did." The words looped like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. Her mother's silhouette haunted her, blurry, fading, unfinished. And suddenly, the possibility that Chase knew something real, clawed at Harper's lungs. She locked every bolt on her door, then slid to the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She hated feeling like prey, hated that Chase could still trigger the helplessness she thought she'd buried years ago. Another knock jolted her. She froze. Not him. Not again. But then, "Harper? It's me." Noah. Her breath returned in a rush. She opened the door. Noah stood there, slightly disheveled, tie loosened, hair windswept. He must have rushed. His eyes scanned her face instantly. "What happened?" he demanded quietly. "You called me 6 times." Her voice cracked. "He threatened me." Noah's posture changed, shoulders rigid, jaw sharp, eyes dark with anger. He didn't bother hiding. "Let me in." Harper stepped aside, still shaking. Noah closed the door gently behind him, as if he didn't want to startle her, then turned, controlled, but burning. "Tell me exactly what he said." Harper repeated the threat, every word trembling out of her. Noah didn't interrupt, but the muscles in his jaw twitched with every sentence. When she finished, Noah exhaled slowly through his nose. "He shouldn't have said that," he murmured. "Because now, I'm done being polite." Harper blinked. "What do you mean?" Noah pulled a folder from his coat, a thick one, worn at the edges. "I wasn't ignoring your calls. I was meeting someone who used to work for Whitmore Capital's legal team. I asked him about your mother." Harper's heart dropped. Noah sat across from her on the small couch and opened the folder. "Your mother wasn't just an engineer. She was a whistleblower. She discovered financial irregularities tied to Whitmore projects 20 years ago. She filed an internal report, then vanished days later." Harper's world tilted. "No," she whispered. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because her report was buried," Noah said. "But the man I met had a copy. She named Chase's father, and 2 board members." Harper's stomach churned. "Harper, your marriage wasn't a coincidence." Noah's voice softened. Whitmore Capital didn't choose you at random. Chase was told to keep you close, to control you. Her breath caught, her life, her marriage, her mother. All tangled in a trap she never saw coming. Noah reached out gently, stopping just short of touching her hand. You're not alone anymore. And for the first time, she believed him. Harper barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, her mother's file, Chase's threat, and Noah's grim expression merged into one suffocating nightmare. By morning, the city felt louder than usual. Sirens, car horns, footsteps, all of it crashing against her raw nerves. She brewed coffee she couldn't drink. She tried to breathe normally. She tried to remind herself she wasn't alone anymore. Then her phone buzzed. Dozens of notifications flooded the screen. Group chats, co-workers, unknown numbers, mentions, tags. Her stomach flipped. She clicked the first link. A video. Her, in her wedding dress, dragging her suitcase through the Park Hyatt lobby. Mascara streaked, heartbroken, alone. Someone had recorded her humiliation and posted it with the caption, "Runaway bride." Staff say she stormed out hours after saying, "I do." Harper's vision tunneled. Her phone buzzed again. Another video, this time recorded from a different angle. Her tripping on the rug, grabbing her suitcase, her face twisted in pain she hadn't wanted anyone to see. And then, a perfectly staged voice chiming in. Brielle, standing just off camera, pretending to console her. "Poor thing," Brielle's voice cooed. "She's overwhelmed. Chase is doing everything he can." It hit Harper like a punch. This wasn't a random leak. This was crafted, edited, packaged, and weaponized. Her humiliation had been turned into PR content. Harper's hands shook violently. She scroll-clicked again. The third video loaded. This one showed Chase entering the penthouse elevator with Brielle, arms brushing, her hand on his chest, time-stamped just before Harper signed the divorce papers. The caption, "CFO Whitmore, comforting family friend after bride's meltdown." A meltdown? They were painting her as unstable. Her throat burned. This was exactly what Chase needed, to paint her as emotional, hysterical, unprofessional. Someone whose claims couldn't be trusted. The blueprint, her mother's report, everything she now knew. They were preparing to discredit her before she even spoke. A loud knock jolted her. She flinched, heart pounding. But it wasn't Chase's angry rhythm. It was fast, urgent. "Harper, open up," Noah called. "You need to see this." She opened the door. Noah held his phone out, face grim. Whitmore Capital released a statement. Harper braced herself. Noah read aloud. "Harper Ellington has been struggling with emotional instability. Out of respect for her privacy, we are offering full support during this difficult time." Her blood turned to ice. Brielle didn't just betray her, she framed her. Noah looked up, eyes burning. "They're going to war," Harper swallowed hard. "Then they're about to learn I don't break quietly." Harper stood frozen in the middle of her living room, Noah's phone still displaying Whitmore Capital's statement, her name dragged through mud by people who couldn't stand to lose control. Emotional instability. The words felt like a slap. That was how they planned to erase her, how they planned to erase her mother, how they silenced every woman who ever threatened their empire. Harper's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. "They're destroying me," she whispered. Noah set his phone aside and stepped closer, not touching her, but anchoring her with his steady presence. "They're trying to. That's different." "No one will believe me over Whitmore Capital," she said, voice cracking. "They own the media. They own the narrative. They own everything." "Not everything," Noah said firmly. "Not the truth. Not your voice. and not me. His words landed with unexpected weight. For the first time since the wedding, Harper felt something besides fear and humiliation. She felt seen, defended, not alone. But the moment was short-lived. Her phone buzzed again. A voicemail from her boss. Hands trembling, she pressed play. "Harper, I'm sorry. With everything happening online, corporate wants you off the Midtown project. They think it's best if you take an unpaid leave until things settle down." Her breath caught. Unpaid leave. A polite way of saying, "You're fired without the paperwork." She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I'm losing everything. My job, my reputation, my safety. Even my mother's past is being used against me." Noah crouched in front of her, his voice soft but unyielding. "Listen to me. This is exactly what they want. Your silence, your compliance. They need you scared so you won't expose the truth." Harper looked up, eyes rimmed with red. "Chase said there's a tunnel. Something hidden. Something criminal. And that's why they're trying to discredit you first," Noah replied. "If you come forward later, they'll wave this statement around and call it emotional distress." The realization hit her like cold water. "They're preparing for war," Harper whispered. Noah nodded. "So, we prepare too." "How?" she asked, voice small. He held her gaze, unwavering. "By getting ahead of them. By telling your story before they rewrite it. And by using the one thing they never expected you to have." Harper frowned. "What's that?" Noah's voice dropped. "Proof about your mother and about the tunnel." Harper's pulse quickened, fear mixing with something new. Fuel. Strength. Fire. For the first time, she didn't feel like prey. She felt like a threat. Chase Whitmore was not a man who panicked. At least, that's what he told himself, as he paced across his penthouse office, overlooking Midtown. But the tremor in his hands betrayed him. The IPO team had called twice. Investors were asking questions. Reporters were circling like vultures. And all because of one woman he thought he could control. His phone buzzed. Brielle. He almost didn't answer, but he couldn't afford another fire. "What?" "Chase," she snapped. "The videos aren't working like we planned." "What do you mean?" Her voice dropped to a sharp whisper. "People feel sorry for her. Sympathy engagement is rising. She's trending as the abandoned bride. It's making you look bad." Chase's stomach dropped. Bad press he could handle. Public pity he could not. "I thought your edits would make her look unstable," he hissed. Brielle scoffed. "I'm a PR strategist, not a magician. You walked into an elevator with me on your wedding night. What did you expect me to do? Turn water into wine?" He gritted his teeth. "Fix it." "I'll try," Brielle replied, "but the board is nervous. Your father called. He wants to know if Harper has anything she could use against the company." Fear shot through him. Harper. The blueprint. The tunnel. He ended the call without another word. His office door burst open. Daniel Reed stepped inside, sweating. "Chase, we've got a problem." Another one. "What now?" "Someone accessed the old compliance files from 20 years ago." Chase froze. "No, not those files." "They found a whistleblower report," Daniel continued, voice shaky, "from a former engineer, Evelyn Ellington." Chase felt the blood leave his face. Harper's mother. Daniel swallowed hard. "If she connects you, or your father, to that missing report, everything falls apart." Chase slammed his fist onto the desk. "Where is she now?" "Harper? Still at home, I think." Chase grabbed his coat. "I'm going to her." Daniel hesitated. "Should I send someone with you?" Chase shot him a glare. "Do I look like I can't handle my own wife?" But as he stormed out of the building, something flickered. Fear. Real and acidic. Meanwhile, across the city, Harper sat with Noah in her living room, scanning the documents he'd found. Each page connected dots she never knew existed. Noah looked up. "We're getting close. Whitmore Capital will feel cornered soon." Harper nodded, determination sharpening her features. Neither of them knew. Chase was already on his way, and this time he wasn't coming to talk. The Carver Foundation's annual winter charity gala glittered beneath crystal chandeliers, the kind of Manhattan event attended by CEOs, senators, and every social climber desperate for proximity to power. Harper didn't belong here. At least, that's what her trembling nerves whispered as she stepped into the ballroom beside Noah. But tonight wasn't about belonging. Tonight was about standing tall. Noah had insisted she come. "If Whitmore Capital plans to paint you unstable," he said, "then we put you somewhere they can't twist your truth, in the public eye, on your own terms." Harper took a slow breath, straightening the black velvet dress Noah's assistant had picked out for her. She felt different in it, stronger, grounded, almost like someone rebuilding herself from the bones outward. The room quieted slightly when they entered. Whispers followed them like invisible threads. "Is that the bride from the videos? She looks nothing like the rumors. Who's the man with her? Is that Noah Carver?" Harper kept her chin high, refusing to shrink. She managed 2 minutes, just 2, before the moment shattered. Chase Whitmore walked in, tall, confident, diamond black suit. Brielle on his arm, wearing a smirk shaped like victory. The crowd parted instinctively, watching the collision course unfold. Chase's eyes landed on Harper, sharply, hungrily, with the fury of a man losing control. Even from across the ballroom, she felt it like a physical force. He approached fast. "Harper," he said tightly. "A word." Noah stepped forward, calm but immovable. "She's not interested." Chase ignored him, grabbing Harper's wrist, hard enough to hurt. "What do you think you're doing here? You're making things worse." "For you," Harper replied coldly. "Not for me." "Don't test me," he hissed. "You don't understand the damage you're causing." Noah's voice cut through the tension like steel. "Let go. Now." Chase turned, eyes burning. "This is between my wife and me." "Ex-wife," Harper corrected. "I signed the papers." "And they're not filed," Chase snapped, "because I didn't approve them." Harper froze. Approval? She didn't need his approval. Noah stepped closer, voice dangerously calm. "You're making a scene," Chase scoffed. "She already made one. I'm cleaning up her mess like always." The words echoed across the ballroom. Several guests gasped. Harper lifted her chin. "My only mistake was trusting you." Chase leaned closer, jaw clenched. "You think this is over? You think a dress and a pity escort make you powerful?" Harper held his gaze. "I don't need power," she said softly. "I have the truth." For the first time, Chase's expression cracked, fear slicing through the arrogance, and Noah smiled, just a fraction. Because he knew Chase understood. Harper Ellington wasn't the victim anymore. She was the threat. The moment Chase backed away from Harper, the room didn't go back to normal. It shifted. Whispers sharpened. Eyes followed Brielle. For the first time all night, she wasn't glowing with confidence. She was glaring at Harper with a flicker of something new. Fear. Harper noticed it immediately. Noah noticed even faster. He leaned in slightly. "Looks like someone's losing control of their script." Brielle tried to recover, slipping her hand into Chase's arm as if reclaiming possession. "Let's go, Chase. This crowd is toxic." But before Chase could move, a reporter approached. One of the influential ones, from the Manhattan Ledger. "Mr. Whitmore," the reporter said, lifting her phone. "We'd love a quick statement about the penthouse footage." Is it true that you left your bride on your wedding night with Ms. Stanton? Brielle's smile froze. Chase stiffened. That footage was taken out of context. The reporter pressed. Was the context that you were comforting her? Or that you were celebrating your IPO the night before? It collapsed 2 points. A ripple of murmurs rolled through the room. Brielle's eyes widened. Collapsed? The reporter smirked. Oh, you didn't know. Investors are spooked. Your involvement might be contributing. Chase whipped toward Brielle, voice low and venomous. What did you do? I tried to fix it, she stammered. By staging videos? By leaking our elevator footage? Chase hissed. You made everything worse. Her face drained of color. Harper watched the cracks appear in real time. The perfect mistress mask slipping, revealing insecurity, desperation, and fear. The public sympathy Brielle expected to gain had twisted into mockery. But the fall wasn't done. Across the ballroom, another phone chimed, then another. Guests began checking socials. The same reporter's face lit up with breaking news. Well, she said, looking directly at Brielle. It seems the Investor Relations Department just issued a statement. They're distancing themselves from you, Ms. Stanton. Something about inappropriate influence on corporate leadership? Brielle gasped. That's impossible. Harper tilted her head, voice cool as ice. Guess you're not the family friend they want anymore. Brielle turned to Chase, desperate. You'll fix this. You promised. Chase stepped back, actually stepped away from her. I don't owe you anything, he muttered. You're a liability. The humiliation hit Brielle like a slap. A tear slid down her cheek, shocking even her. You said you needed me, she whispered. Chase smirked cruelly. I lied. The room watched Brielle Stanton's world collapse under gold chandeliers and polite applause. Harper felt no sympathy. For the first time, she saw justice beginning to move. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, Harper woke to a world louder than ever. Notifications exploding across her phone, messages piling in, journalists circling like sharks. But she felt steady, strangely steady. Last night's confrontation had cracked something open inside her, and for the first time in weeks, there was room to breathe. Noah sat at her small kitchen table, laptop open, sleeves rolled up. He looked like a man preparing for war, the quiet, intellectual kind that left empires trembling. I found something, he said. Harper sat across from him, bracing herself. Noah turned the screen toward her. It was an internal memo, a digital ghost hidden deep within Whitmore Capital's archives. A memo written by her mother, dated 20 years ago. Harper's breath caught. The header read, Structural Integrity Concerns, Midtown Project Phase 1. Her mother had warned them about the same issues Harper uncovered now. The missing supports, the manipulated calculations, the dangerous shortcuts. History wasn't just repeating, it had never stopped. She tried to expose them, Harper whispered, tracing her mother's signature with trembling fingers. And they buried her. Noah nodded grimly. But they didn't bury everything. We have this. And we have the blueprint you found. Harper swallowed hard. Chase will never let this go public. That's why you will, Noah said, on your own terms. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it until Noah gently said, Answer. It might matter. Harper hesitated, then picked up. Hello? A woman's trembling voice replied. Harper Ellington? My name is Claire Woods. I used to work with your mother. The air left Harper's lungs. You knew her? I was her assistant, Claire whispered. and I've lived with guilt for 20 years. Evelyn tried to warn everyone, but the Whitmores shut her down. They threatened her. She told me she was scared. Then she vanished. Harper's fingers tightened around the phone. Claire continued, voice cracking. And now they're doing it to you. I saw the news. I saw what they're saying about you. Harper, don't let them silence you like they silenced her. Harper blinked back tears. I won't. I have something, Claire added. A copy of Evelyn's full report. Whitmore Capital never found it. Harper nearly dropped the phone. Her mother's truth. Intact. Waiting. Noah, she whispered, eyes burning. We can prove everything. He smiled. Small, proud, fierce. Then let's end this. For the first time, Harper felt the ground shift in her favor. Whitmore Capital had the power, but she finally had the truth. And truth was louder than fear. The boardroom of Whitmore Capital had never been so silent. Dozens of executives sat stiffly around the polished mahogany table, screens glowing with numbers and documents they wished they'd never seen. Cameras from 3 major news outlets lined the back wall. This was supposed to be a routine investor update. Instead, Harper Ellington walked in. Not as a wife, not as a victim, not as a girl from foster care who never belonged anywhere, but as the woman carrying the truth her mother died trying to reveal. Noah walked beside her, calm and powerful, a quiet shield. Claire Woods trailed behind them, clutching the original folder, the report that had survived 2 decades of corruption and lies. Chase stood at the head of the table, pale, sweating, unprepared. Harper, he hissed, you can't be here. This is a restricted... Harper placed the folder on the table. Hard. Then call security, she said. Let's see who they remove. Gasps murmured through the room. Noah tapped the screen, broadcasting the files to the board. Her mother's whistleblower report, the falsified structural blueprints, the tunnel scans the city inspectors never saw, the internal memos showing Chase's approval. Chase lunged forward. Turn that off! 2 board members held him back. Harper stepped closer, voice steady, beautifully controlled. My mother tried to save this company from itself. You buried her. You buried the truth. And then you married me to keep me silent. The room erupted. Outrage, shock, disbelief. One investor slammed his tablet shut. This is criminal! Another looked at Chase with disgust. You used shareholder money to cover this up? Cameras flashed as Chase shouted, She's lying! She's unstable! Claire spoke for the first time, voice trembling but fierce. She's the sanest person in this room. And I watched your father threaten her mother. I never forgot. The final crack. Chase's empire crumbled in real time. Investors withdrawing support. The board voting to suspend him immediately. Reporters swarmed. Security escorted him out as he yelled her name like a warning gone unheard. Harper didn't flinch. When the chaos settled, she walked out onto the balcony overlooking Manhattan, the winter sun washing over her. Noah joined her quietly. It's over. She breathed deeply, free for the first time. No, it's finally beginning. Noah hesitated, then gently offered his hand. Whatever future you want, you don't have to build it alone. Harper looked at him, steady, warm, safe. And for once, the future didn't scare her. She took his hand, not because she needed saving, but because she finally had the freedom to choose. And just like that, our story comes to a close. But hey, my wonderful friends, if you're still here with me right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. So let's take a moment together. Life will always bring people who try to break us, betray us, rewrite our truth. But like the Stoics said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Harper's Path reminds us that no matter how painful the storm is, we still get to choose who we become after it. We don't control the world, but we do control our response. And sometimes, choosing ourselves is the bravest step of all. If you've ever felt abandoned, unheard, or underestimated, remember Marcus Aurelius's words. The obstacle is the way. The setback you're facing now may be the turning point you need. Healing isn't loud. It's a quiet decision made in the middle of the night that says, I deserve better. So if this story gave you strength or made you feel understood even a little, let me know. Tap like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through stories and life together. You're not alone. You never were. Just a quick note for everyone still with us. This entire story is a work of fiction created purely for entertainment. The characters, events, companies, and situations you just watched are not real and are not based on any true individuals or organizations. Everything was crafted to explore themes of resilience, courage, and emotional healing in a dramatic way. Any resemblance to actual people or events is completely coincidental. This narrative is meant to inspire reflection, not to represent real-life accusations or factual scenarios. Thank you for watching with an open heart and understanding the creative nature of this content. Your support helps us continue making meaningful stories, and we truly appreciate you being here.